So despite the fact that we are over a week out from when the last votes were cast, there is still a surprising amount that's up in the air. We have 10 House and 2 Senate seats that are still undecided. Some of this is routine, others, well, not so much. In what is apparently becoming an election time norm, controversy has erupted in Florida as Broward and Palm Beach counties' slow reporting and lack of transparency has made a very tight Senate race even tighter. In what could, never at all be considered a partisan conflict of interest, Florida's governor and current leader in the Senate race, Rick Scott, has levied accusations of voter fraud and ordered the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, FDLE, to open a voter fraud investigation, which they declined, citing the lack of, evidence of actual fraud. But as people started poring over election returns data, many have been pointing to another curious part of Broward County's election management as evidence that the election was indeed stolen. Not from Republicans, but from Democrats. And not because of fraud, because again, there's no evidence of that, but from something far, far more boring. Ballot design. This is a sample ballot from Orange County. You can see that the state's 2 largest profile races, senator and governor, are at the top. This is the case in 66 of Florida's 67 counties. This, however, is a ballot from Broward County. Not only is the Senate race not near the gubernatorial one, it's tucked beneath a bunch of instructions all the way at the end of the page. There is a robust literature in political science on ballot effects and ballot runoff. Because you aren't mandated to fill out a vote for every race, proposition, or amendment, a decent proportion of people, don't. Votes tend to drop off as issues get relegated further down the ballot. With limited exception, you find the most votes at the top of the ballot and fewer votes towards the end. And this effects get larger the longer the ballot gets. As a result, Broward County had a substantial amount of undervote compared to Florida's other counties, about 26,000 votes to be specific. The margin of victory between Governor Scott and the incumbent Democratic Senator Bill Nelson is about 15,000 votes, and Broward is a very, very Democratic county. Therefore, it seems plausible, indeed a lot of the media is framing it to appear, that Nelson's defeat was merely an artifact of how one county deigned to design its ballot. It sounds plausible, but it's not actually true. The intuitive appeal behind this explanation is that Broward County is one of the state's Democratic strongholds, but whether a county is a Democratic or Republican stronghold is often a matter of degree. Usually Broward tends to split about 60 to 65% blue and 30 to 35% red, assuming that the undervote follows the same proportion since there's no evidence to suggest that voter roll-off affects one kind of partisan more than the other, and the 26,000 votes would not be enough to secure Nelson the victory. In fact, if you do the math, Democrats would need about 75% of the undervote in order to gain the upper hand in the senatorial election, which frankly isn't likely, even considering Broward's partisan composition. And while following the standard placement would have made the race far closer, the odds that the subsequent recount would have led to a switch in the outcomes is also pretty low. A report compiled by Fairvote showed that the margins after a recount only changed by about 0.02% on average at the state level. Now, there were a lot of things that Florida Democrats could credibly claim depressed their 2018 vote turnout. Provisional ballots are rejected at higher rates for African Americans, Latinos, groups that tend to lean Democratic, and these same populations are disproportionately affected by routine voter roll purges. Republicans could also claim depressed turnout in 2018, though, not from these sorts of, systematic leaning things, but from Hurricane Michael, which disproportionately affected the more conservative-leaning Panhandle. In any event, it's tough to say how the election would look if all of these forces weren't at play. This state is damn close, and obviating all those factors would probably make it even closer. All that we can know for sure is that the way the election went isn't based on how ballots were designed in a single county. While we're talking about election updates, let's talk about the other super close races around the nation. There are currently 11 seats that are still too close to call, 10 for the House and the Arizona Senate seat. The majority of these races are in places that generally take a little while to have all the ballots counted for a host of reasons. California, for instance, is notorious for taking forever to tabulate all the election returns for the sheer fact that it's just, big, both geographically and population-wise. The reason why this routine, extended duration caused these 11 tight races is twofold. First, voter turnout was up by a lot compared to a normal midterm election. We don't know specifically by how much at this point, but we do know that it was a lot. Second, the races were more competitive than general. it's generally possible for you to be able to call a race long before the final votes are counted, but that becomes irresponsible when the margins of victory get super thin. And in these elections, the margins are really thin. In fact, less than 1 percentage point in the majority of the cases. However, at this point, I personally doubt that any more of these races are actually going to switch in partisan leaning. So not for official purposes, like don't go to the bank with this, but for the purposes of the election prediction contest that we had a couple of weeks ago, I'm prepared to give, some final numbers. The House looks like it's going to have 231 Democrats, the Senate looks like it's going to have 52 Republicans, and the Democratic share of the two-party vote is looking to be at 52.4%. The winner was Charles Bliss, guessing both Senate and House compositions correctly and missing the two-party vote by only 0.6 points. So congratulations, Charles Bliss. Bragging rights are yours. That should hopefully do it when it comes to talking about the 2018 midterms, unless, something crazy is about, oh, don't you do it, I swear to God. Next week, we'll hopefully be talking about polarization, so I hope you guys will enjoy that. But until then, I'm looking forward to hearing you guys' thoughts and comments about this week's topic down in the comment section below. I'm looking forward to reading all of them and answering a few in the next office hours. Last week, we talked about preliminary election results, so let's see what we have to unpack there. Before getting into the other comments, there's something I want to talk about real quick regarding a comment left by Zena B, who wrote that, there's a pretty big discrepancy between punishment and actions committed between, someone like President Trump and Kwame Kilpatrick, the former mayor of Detroit who was convicted of perjury and obstruction of justice. But she concluded her comment by saying, quote, "By that logic, 45 should hang like Saddam," 45 being, a way of referring to Donald Trump, who was the 45th president. And while I think that Dorian Sapiens points out in the conversation that they, Zena B, and I had about the comment in general, that the spirit of Zena B's comment originally was about fairness, and that the hanging thing is intentional hyperbole, I get that, but it still, for me, is a bit too fuzzy a line for me to be comfortable. Again, I understand at the point of, deploying the hyperbole, and I'm not trying to equivocate this comment with the one that was, just explicitly for the point of advocating political violence, but I think that the situation in the United States has ratcheted up like, 20 points too high. We had someone mailing ricin letters to the president and top military officials not too long ago, not to mention the pipe bombs sent to people that the president has publicly criticized. I think that if there is a place for violence in politics, it's exceptionally small. It only occurs in the most dire of circumstances. Right now, we're not there. Not even close. We have a responsibility as everyday people to signal that we don't support this escalation or the rhetoric that's part and parcel to its rise. And because the character of our politics is so popularly cast as a blood sport, it's easy to use words that fall into the trope and fall into furthering the divide. I do it, I know I do it, I try my best not to, but I know I'm far from perfect, but we need to strive to do better. We have to put forward a concerted effort to take it down a few levels, and that includes how we express sincerely felt frustration and anger. And for the record, Zena B understood this point and my consternation about it, so I don't want to see any kinds of rallying against them or the comment that they made. I love the community around this channel because 99.99% of the comments and interactions are civil and just fantastic. So, let's keep it that way. All right, getting into our regularly scheduled programming. So PO asked for a part 2 for when all the information was available, the analyses that I gave earlier. And I guess this is, kind of OP delivering. I did do the analyses using the more completed results and found statistically significant differences between districts that Republicans maintained and those that they lost, in terms of educational attainment, median household income, the percent of the district living in urban areas, and the proportion of the district that recognizes itself as Hispanic. For, kicks and giggles, I'm going to be making a small presentation on the 2018 election in maps, so I'll keep you guys queued in for that. Me too, man. Me too. I mean, I live in Florida. Like, on the plus side, we're not going to need to worry about the aquifer running out of water because, a good chunk of the state's going to get swallowed up by the sea anyways. Glad to have you here, Josh. The more the merrier. Rainley150 noted that the race for Senate seemed to be very, very skewed in the Democrats' favor in terms of the vote total, despite the fact that Republicans actually managed to gain additional seats. And while this is true, we should definitely keep in mind that the state of the, state map was not in the Democrats' favor. Democrats were defending way more seats and they were in Democratic strongholds. It makes sense that they would have a higher proportion of the vote this time around. Yeah, when comparing the popular vote to Senate outcomes, you have to remember that only a third of the Senate is elected at any given time. That's all the time that we have for today. Thank you guys so much for your comments. Please, please, please keep them coming. I truly enjoy reading them and responding to them in this format. Sources for everything is always be down in the doobie-doo, as well as links to Facebook, Twitter, and the blog. Forward to seeing you guys out there as well. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you consider giving it a thumbs up. If you want to support the channel, you can do so by commenting down below, by sharing this video, and by subscribing to the channel, stay in the loop for more awesome social science content is uploaded. If you want to be guaranteed to be in the loop when I upload a new video, be sure to click the bell icon as well. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time.